The highly anticipated Trump raid search warrant affidavit finally gets released. And if we could actually read more about the supposed probable cause, we could fact check all those leaks. But as you can see, well, there's not a lot to see. As the Liberty Daily points out, the FBI affidavit is so redacted, they even redacted their reasons for redacting what they redacted. We did learn the agency used media articles to justify the raid. Sean Davis, Biden's DOJ, told a federal court that the FBI had to raid Trump's house because a CBS News article saw trucks at Mar-a-Lago when Trump was president. And was Biden lying when he said he had no prior knowledge of the raid?
President, how much advance notice did you have of the FBI's plan to search Mar-a-Lago?
I didn't have any advance notice. None. Zero. Not one single bit. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Memos obtained by Just the News show then White House Deputy Counsel Jonathan Su was engaged in conversations with the FBI, DOJ, and National Archives as early as April and had received Biden's blessing to remove the former president's protective claim of privilege. Bringing you what's ignored, sensationalized, misleading, or just plain false, here's your media malfeasance for the week. Even more bad news for FBI credibility this week. Just the News reports even more whistleblowers are coming forward with misconduct claims against the FBI. One claiming FBI officials instructed agents not to investigate Hunter Biden's laptop ahead of the 2020 presidential election, according to Senator Ron Johnson. And in a surprise interview with Joe Rogan, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg asserts the FBI advised against sharing the now authenticated Hunter Biden laptop story.
Like, there was a lot of attention on Twitter during the election because of the Hunter Biden laptop story. The New York Post.
Yeah, we have that too.
Yeah, so you guys censored that as well?
So we took a different path than Twitter. Basically the background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant. And for I think it was 5 or 7 days when it was basically being determined whether it was false, the distribution on Facebook was decreased, but people were still allowed to share it. So you could still share it, you could still consume it.
So when you say the distribution is decreased,
it got shared.
How does that work?
It basically, the ranking in newsfeed was a little bit less. So fewer people saw it than would have otherwise. So it definitely...
By what percentage?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's meaningful.
The DOJ has also authenticated Ashley Biden's diary. Now the 2 Florida residents pleaded guilty to taking it. But most reports don't point out how unusual it is for federal agencies to track down a missing diary or mention the disturbing details in it, like Ashley's mention of probably not appropriate showers with her father, Joe. You also might have missed from the mainstream that the Trump campaign was offered Ashley Biden's diary, but told the diary-pushing pair to take it to the FBI instead. Speaking of the Biden family, just months from midterms, President Biden waves his hand and poof, student debt disappears. For individuals who make $125,000 a year or less, $250K if you're married, up to $20,000 for Pell Grant recipients, according to NPR. So how's this getting paid for?
So you could say this is how much it's going to cost if everyone who is eligible applies.
We just don't have a number to share at this time.
Why don't you?
Look, the secretary, the UN ambassador, the former UN ambassador spoke to this yesterday. We just have to see. It is a process that we just need to take a look before we can answer that question. We just don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
But I guess what I'm struggling with, and I think some of my colleagues have asked about, is...
Yeah, you asked the same question yesterday. This is nothing new, right? This is a summary. Oh, okay, but you picked up on what he was saying, so.
I was going to say, if you don't know how much it's going to cost, how can you guarantee that it's going to be paid for, even if you're defining paid for in a way that some of us have questions about?
Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania estimates total cost of forgiveness at between $300 billion and $980 billion over the 10-year budget window. Except hundreds of billions of debt doesn't just magically disappear. So who has to foot the bill? Well, the rest of us will, through taxes and inflation, according to former Obama advisor Jason Furman. In the midst of a scathing Twitter thread, he says, pouring roughly $500 billion of gasoline on the inflationary fire that is already burning is reckless. Most importantly, everyone else will pay for this either in the form of higher inflation or in higher taxes or lower benefits in the future. Missing from the mainstream media is if the president actually has any legal authority to forgive student debt. Nancy Pelosi had an answer to that question just last year.
People think that the President of the United States has the power for debt forgiveness. He does not. He can postpone, he can delay, but he does not have that power. That has to be an act of Congress.
Many have questions, like this father did when the idea was being floated in 2020.
I just want to ask one question. My daughter's getting out of school. I've saved all my money. She doesn't have any student loans. Am I going to get my money back? Of course not. So you're going to pay for people who didn't save any money, and those of us that did the right thing get screwed.
No, it's not anybody got screwed. When we
Of
started,
course we did. My buddy had fun, bought a car, went on vacations. I saved my money. He made more than I did. But I worked a double shift, worked extra. My daughter works, she was 10. So you're laughing. Yeah, that's exactly what you're doing. We did the right thing, and we get screwed.
I appreciate
That's
it.
all right.
Here's President Biden's response to that question.
Mr. President, is this unfair to people who paid their student loans or chose not to take out loans?
Is it fair to people who, in fact, do not own multi-billion-dollar businesses? If she wants these guys give them all a tax breaks, is that fair? What do you think?
What about people who pay?
But as many have noted, is up to a $40,000 bailout for a couple making $250,000 fair? And we all know how those PPP loans worked out. Money Talks News shares rich celebrities like Tom Brady, Reese Witherspoon, Khloe Kardashian, and DUI convicted Paul Pelosi had huge loans forgiven. But even student loan forgiveness critics like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz received large loans. Are they hypocrites, or are we talking about two different things? Let me know what you think in the comments. Another thing taxpayers will have to pay for is Tony Fauci's retirement. Or is he retiring? He announced this week he's stepping down from his NIH position, in addition to the role of chief medical advisor to President Joe Biden in December. But he says he's not retiring and will pursue the next phase of his career. Either way, he's eventually getting a taxpayer-funded retirement worth at least $350,000 annually, according to National Pulse. Rand Paul tweets, Fauci's resignation will not prevent a full-throated investigation into the origins of the pandemic. He will be asked to testify under oath regarding any decisions he participated in concerning the lab leak. A letter has been sent to the NIH acting director to preserve all documents. Meanwhile, First Lady Jill Biden tests positive for COVID again this week. But remember, she got that safe and effective needle. If we learn there is anything wrong, it's of course Donald Trump's fault. Politico, the Trump administration pressured the FDA to authorize unproven treatments for COVID-19 and the first COVID-19 vaccines on an accelerated timeline, according to a House report released Wednesday. Wait, that sounds like a negative headline. I thought all these outlets were telling us before how great it was. And that's all the time I have for this week. For the headlines that didn't make the cut and more exclusive content, please join my community and subscribe to my Locals page. Just search for Christy Lee TV on locals.com.